Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. And we have a very special guest. And I'm pretty sure if you recognize this beautiful face that you're looking at right now, he is really well known in the Jyotish community. Astrology is really lighting up the way. So I really want to welcome my special guest, and we're going to be talking about relationship. And he has the words of wisdom. If you're stuck in a relationship, you're brokenhearted, you're pulling out the ice cream, you're eating there, you're wondering, where is the love of my life and what is wrong with me or what is wrong with the universe? And you're wondering, what can I do about it? Visti, welcome to my show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, Cindy. And thank you for all the good work you've been doing on relationships and astrology so far. It's quite brilliant to see somebody so prolific in this topic. So yes, relationships. And should we get right in it, Cindy? What do you prefer?
Okay, let's start off with the psychology of a moon. What is so important about moon? Is moon more important or Venus is more important? Who do we really choose at the end of a day? Like, who do we choose?
So I come from a traditional astrological background. The tradition of my teacher is a good 500 years old. All right. So when people ask me, what do? I normally just say, well, this is what I was taught and this is what I do. All right. And they are pretty much the same, I can tell you. Now, in the traditional astrology, as soon as you ask me, is the moon the most important and how should we go about the moon? I normally say, well, are you sure you want to use the moon for matching or moon for reading the chart? Are you sure you want to do that? Because there's an implication you're getting into there.
Right.
Everything that we do has an implication when we read certain topics in astrology. Somebody is going to say, well, why aren't you just comparing the two charts like they do in Western synastry? Put them on top of each other and we see where Saturn, where's Mars, where Jupiter, where's Venus, and all that. And so this is where we get into it and say, firstly, if we're speaking about the proper reading of a chart from the perspective of relationships, we in Vedic astrology, the traditional Vedic astrology, we don't use the same methods of synastry that we would normally apply in Western. All right. Namely, we don't just put the planets on top of each other or charts on top of each other and compare. We just don't do that. And there is a way, excuse me, I should say, there is a way to do that. There is a way, but it's not what you would have thought. But the traditional method that's been held for a very long time and spoken of in the textbooks is that we compare the moon signs. And we do it based on the star of the moon and so on. There's a whole Kuta or Guna matching system. But as soon as you do that, you are implying that you're not necessarily matching the two people. You're matching the two people's families. And you would think, oh, Visti, what? What are we doing? Why are we doing that? Why are we matching their families with each other? That's not relevant. Or is it? And this is where we say, it sort of is from a very, very important perspective. You want that if they're going to be a family together, that everybody else is going to accept them together and there will be enough support around them to have a happy relationship. So truth be told, moon matching is really how well does society support your relationship.
Ah, that's so brilliant. So the Kuta tends to be the old-fashioned way of doing things back in the day, right?
Yeah.
We were mentioning earlier.
Yeah.
And I know that that was part of it. It's really important. How you were saying is also our ancestor. Does it agree? Yes or no, right?
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
know a few times that you have mentioned about the sun and the moon. That is the egg and the sperm meeting together. And we always want to look both as well, not only the moon, but our sun as a soul, a human being. We don't see our sun per se. We see our ascendant, right?
Yeah.
You're looking at my ascendant right now. I'm looking at your ascendant right now, right? We're not really looking at each other's moon or sun per se. We're looking at each other's ascendant in general. And you're saying that because our moon is part of our ancestor, how much support that you will get, does it agree with each other?
And it's really, really relevant. And this is where we must give a lot of credit to the rishis in the way they put across this information. Because when you study this topic of the moon and you study matching of the moon, a very nice classic and elaborate classic to read on this is Prashnamarga, very elaborate. Muhurta Chintamani is really good too. But when you read these two classics, and especially Prashnamarga, you realize the whole system of matching is tilted in favor of the lady, the bride. Okay? It's all in favor of the feminine, if you will. It's trying to ensure that that bride is entering this union with as much support as possible. So then I say, oh, thank goodness. Somebody was thinking. It wasn't just a system that was, tilted in favor of a sort of, a patriarchal system. No, it was really to ensure a bride, the feminine in the relationship, was supported as much as possible. And that's why high guna or kuta matching really just tells you how comfortable is the bride going to be in this situation with the groom's family, the bride's family, the whole family also implies friends here, not only family, but friends, the whole support system around to ensure that the two of them, and especially the bride, is supported as much as possible because of one important function that's going to arise in any long-term relationship. They're going to talk about kids. Okay, so when we talk about the moon, it's really for the benefit of the family to continue. All right. So that's what's going on. If you want to know how comfortable you as a lady will be in a relationship, then get into kuta matching. All right. You will straight away get to know, are we going to have enough money in this relationship? How to check that? His moon and your moon have to be in quadrants to each other. Otherwise, that's not going to be a priority. Okay?
Interesting.
Yes. The quadrant is the best matching, the best, absolutely the best, with a slight exception that if they're in the same sign, we don't want them to be in the same nakshatra. Then it causes some other issues.
Interesting.
Okay?
Yes.
And because then we are dwelling on something that is called nadi dosha. All right? And it may not be that the same nakshatra is enough for nadi dosha. Some nakshatras which are next to each other also have nadi dosha. If I don't know if you've spoken about nadi dosha specifically, but for example, Kritika and Rohini, they also share nadi dosha with each other, for example. So there are some nakshatras which have this problem. And then then you'll ask me, okay, but Visti, now we went from quadrants to sign placements to nakshatra and nadi dosha. Well, what's that about? And then I say, okay. So nadi dosha is going to tell us whether the couple is balanced or not together. When they have the same nadi, so we have three nadis we say pranic nadis in the body, affecting our kundalini, actually affecting our breathing more importantly. And when you share the same nadi with your partner, the partnership is very one-sided. There's no balance. There could be a situation where, and you know this from relationships, that you want the relationship also to be balanced. If one says pull, the other one says push sometimes, right? You don't want both of them to say pull, because you need somebody to say and sit back and say, hey, wait a minute, if we do this, this might not be a great idea, Usually the lady will say, come on, hubby, maybe we should rethink this one, right? If I take a stereotypical, masculine feminine type of relationship, depending on who is the masculine and feminine in it, of course. And then we will have one who is holding back and one which is pushing forward. And that balance is necessary to ensure that everything doesn't just jump off a cliff. And that's what happens with nadi dosha. It's going off a cliff. It's going so much into one extreme that there's nobody to say stop or hold back or, hold our horses. And that's why we need nadi dosha to also be there, to be checked, It shouldn't be there. All right. Where if it's what we call adi nadi, what we call pingala, the highest one, the one which is not active, then the partnership is all about spending money all the time. Where if it's ida, they're always saving. Okay, if it is Shushumna, the middle one, Madhya Nadi, then they're not doing anything. They're sitting back, not active, inactive. All right. You could actually figure out what's wrong, who's the active, passive in a relationship based on this. Okay.
Yeah.
What is the Nadi of that particular person? All right. Do I share the same nadi? And we're getting into trouble together. All right. They will traditionally they will say this is important for checking kids, and that's right, but it should not be the only determinant of this, because the relationship itself will be very one-sided if there is nadi dosha. Kids or no kids, it's going to affect the relationship. But coming back to the signs, which I always tell people, take most value in that. The moon signs will tell you about the support in the relationship. It's not the most important thing for every aspect of the relationship, but it's going to be the most important thing with time. Because once we wake up from that, infatuation that takes a good year to get out of, all right, for most of us, when we wake up and say, okay, now I have to live in this planet also. I have to eat food also and drink water also. I cannot live on love alone. All right. And then you have the partner who has to support that, and where you have to figure out, is this partner actually going to be a healthy partnership for me to be in? Because yes, I got over that he or she is wearing that leather jacket and those particular high heels or boots or whatnot, and that motorcycle and all of that. I got over that. Okay, great. Now what? All right. So once we get over that, then that question mark starts. Where are the moons? Okay. So if you permit, I'll speak about good and bad moon placements.
Absolutely. I want to hear if the moon as well, if it's in a hurting position, how is that going to affect as well?
And what do we do about it?
And what we do about it. Not only that, if the man is chasing the woman's moon versus with the woman chasing the man's moon.
Now, that's Vaishya matching. That's interesting, but we'll dwell on that with this.
Go for it.
So if we start off with just the moon placements, and I mentioned the best mutual moon placement is a quadrant. All right. That means from the day the relationship starts till the relationship ends, hopefully never, or with death do they part, is the best solution, and hopefully not early. Then what we expect is, as long as that relationship is going on, this relationship is going to keep having more and more wealth. This need not be necessarily only financially. It will be in every form of asset wealth as well. Okay. So this is the best possible option for any relationship, quadrants. If you can choose this, fantastic. The best two positions in this, the absolute best, is if from the bride's moon, if we're speaking of a pure, husband and wife relationship, from the bride's moon, then the hubby should have the moon in the 10th or the 7th from her. Okay. Or some people will say, oh, Visti, isn't it opposite? And I say, no. Normally people think of the husband's moon and say from the husband's moon, the bride should be in 4th or 7th. All right. But no, I'm taking from the bride's moon because we're talking the proper astrology. The proper astrology depicted in the classics is read it from the bride. The bride is the focus. If we're speaking about traditional, proper Vedic astrology, in every topic that has to do with marriage, in every topic that has to do with the home as well. There's a whole topic of property in this as well. The bride is more important than the groom. She is the focus, not the groom. All right. Even the choice of muhurta, of when the person should wed, her chart is the one we are focusing on, not his. Out. He goes out. In choices of certain transits for that wedding date, we take her chart as priority, as an absolute priority, because if the marriage is not working, she's going to decide that, not him.
It's very interesting, very insightful for sure, knowing that the woman is more supported than the man per se. So much for double standard.
What's that?
So much for double standard.
Yeah. So this has, but we have to do this as astrologers. We have to, all right? Because our focus is, you can think of it as very traditional, but many husband-wife relationships, they tend to put the bride, the wife, in a position where she's highly dependent on the husband. They tend to put them in that because they could be on a very equal level in all aspects until they decide to have kids. We don't trust that man is going to take as good care of the kids as the woman in the relationship. We just don't trust it. All right, because we know she is her maternal instinct is much stronger. For the most part, there are exceptions, is much stronger than his. Okay, she is going to be the lioness in that family, taking care of the lion cubs. The husband, we don't know where he's going to be. All right. Do you know, I was even taught by my teacher, when you wed, and this is really important advice for men. This is Vedic teaching. Okay. When you wed, you, the husband, you don't have a bank account anymore. It's the wife's. Okay? Because you, the husband, can get up and leave and run away and find new work and do whatever. But she, if she is stuck with those lion cubs, remember? All right? She is in not as a independent position. You can always go out as a man and try to make new ways to create wealth in this world. But how about her? So it's now her bank account. Visti, you don't have a bank account anymore. All right. And that creates a lot of security around the relationship, because she is now going to feel as if, all right, I am fully being accommodated here. I see so many couples, especially Indian couples, where the lady is just waiting for some type of allowance from the husband. Okay, it's absolutely heartbreaking to see. It's not remotely traditional Vedic in any way. All right. And some people will say, no, it's because we want to protect each other from, running away with somebody else's money and whatnot. Well, that says a lot about how strong that relationship is, right? How much trust is there. So this is what the whole focus is, that the focus, the support goes on the bride. Okay. And if it doesn't work out, the husband can just tell the office to send his paycheck to his new bank account. No problem. She can take whatever is there. Okay?
Right.
Yeah. If they figure that out, right? So now, again, this is very stereotypical the way I depict it, but we have to be very focused on the bride and relationship, because it's not an equal footing anymore. She's more important than him. She is more important than him. So we have to put more focus on her security. Kendra is the best security. Now, second best relationship between the moons is 311. So you're thinking maybe it should be trines. So most people will think that. Maybe you're not, but most people will think that trines should be the second best. No, it's not the second best. 311 relationships, that's, for example, having moon in Gemini for one and moon in Leo for the other. Okay. Now, it is relevant to say that when we talk about a bridegroom, bride and a groom relationship between moons, we do prefer that from the bride, the groom's moon is in the houses from the 7th till the 12th house. We do prefer that. Okay. But I can tell you from experience, that matters very little in a relationship. In certain positions, it matters a huge amount, but for most part, it doesn't matter too much. Okay? But a 311 relationship is great. It's really good. Every day that relationship is getting better. But what is getting better? It's actually the moons, right? Their comfort is getting better every day. So quadrant was highest security. 311 is growing security. The security is growing. Their comfort and security is really picking up with time. There's a lot of support from friends. Whose friends? Right? Question, whose friends? That depends. I just said, from the bride's moon, we want the groom's moon to be in those 7th till the 12th houses, of which we said 7th and 10th and 11th are best. Okay? That means his friends are supporting you. His friends are supporting the bride. Okay? That is ideal. All right? Now, if it is opposite, if his moon is in the houses from the 1st till the 7th, he can't support. His family won't support as much. They won't provide as much support. They won't provide as much comfort. Okay? Instead, it is going to be her family and her friendship circle and her group of people who are supporting more. All right?
That's really interesting when you were saying that, because I have noticed that quite a bit in others people's chart as well. When the moon is opposite, they always say opposite attract, but that's not always the case,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? It's not
Right.
always the case.
Right.
So what happened if who's chasing who? Who should be chasing who in a relationship?
Now,
So
so when we talk about who's chasing who, it depends not on their moons anymore. Okay? Now, maybe I should finish the moons before I talk about it, because we're going to talk about Venus in a minute. All right?
absolutely go for it.
Okay. So when we talk about the finalizing the moon sign placements, which are really relevant, then the remnant houses that I haven't mentioned are when their moons are in trines to each other. Okay. And when moons are in 2nd and 12th from each other, and 6th and 8th from each other. All of these are negative. All of them. They are not great at all. Okay. Now, you will say, Visti, how bad is trines? Trines are the only ones we don't have a remedy for. The others we can remedy. Now, the implications we have to dwell on. If the moons are in 212 from each other, then unless these signs are Capricorn and Aquarius, this relationship is going to suffer from that outside parties want to break the relationship. It's like, oh, your friends don't like me type situation. Okay. The same thing happens with the 6th and 8th position from the with each other's moons. Okay. And there's just no way around this unless they're again in signs lorded by mutual planets. For example, if it's along Taurus, Libra, or Scorpio and Aries. But there will still be a bit of friction even then. But it implies that the families or the groups or the friendship groups or the support system around them is not supporting the two of them to be together. It does not tell us whether this couple like each other or not. They could be fully in love and wishing to be with each other, but because of a 212 or 6-8 relationship between their moons, they are forced to elope or somehow live without a connection to each other's families, or one side of the family being left out. You can again make out who is supporting more here, depending on whether is it groom's family, groom in 7th to the 12th from the bride's moon, or is it bride's family from the 1st to the 7th or 6th actually. So, and then the trines are peculiar. Trines are peculiar, but they're not considered nice because it means that one is dominating over the other. It's like families putting pressure on the other. So it's like, it would be like, oh, maybe the bride's family is having more money and is pushing and dominating over the groom's family in the decisions, for example, and dominating over the relationship itself. So there's a dominant situation, it's very unhealthy. It works out to make a very, it's a generational gap as well. There could also be an age context to this as well. And this is causing a problem in the relationship. Now, for the 212, the solution is, firstly, they should hold their breath for 5 years. After 5 years, everything becomes fine because they will also have financial problems for those 5 years. The 6-8 relationship, it's pretty much the same, but the 6-8 relationship can encourage people to divorce. So that's a tough one. So the solution there is that we recommend that before they, in the beginning of the relationship, it's good for them to go on a pilgrimage together. Okay?
Interesting.
You see, what's going to happen is on a pilgrimage, when you go to a spiritual or holy place, you normally are in a very serene and spiritual atmosphere, and maybe you are not as romantically engaged with each other because you have to be in this serene atmosphere. It's sort of like a half celibate situation arising. And so what you're doing is you are already taking into account that that 6-8 relationship is supposed to cause divorce, right? Separation. So you are sort of precluding this with a separation in the beginning of the relationship. Interesting, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you're sort of, saying, well, we have to go through this karma anyway. So let us, in the beginning of our relationship, our honeymoon should actually be a pilgrimage where we go to a serene place and pray for a good relationship. No hanky-panky. And then even some will say you have to spend a bit of time apart in the beginning, but never mind that. Pilgrimage, smart idea. And then let the relationship start. Okay. The 5-9, no remedy. Okay. That one is tough. That can really cause problems in a relationship.
Interesting.
So that's about the moons.
Okay.
Who should pursue who? See, moon had nothing to do with how these two partners actually were engaging with each other. Nothing. Okay? And that engaging with each other is really dependent on Venus. So we have something called Venus matching. And it's nothing like the moon matching. Nothing at all. You've heard maybe that the method we use for matching the moons is called guna. Some people call it guna. Some people call it kuta. And then they call it guna and they say there's a guna score. But the word guna means a characteristic, a trait. All right? There are 24 traits, by the way. Now, every planet has 24 traits. But Venus's guna is telling us what is it that this couple is having in common in matters of their taste. You see, in the beginning of a relationship, it's not moon which is leading the couple together. It's not. It is actually two things. It's either the ascendant or it is Venus. I say either because maybe you're using your brains together, or maybe you're not using your brains together. All right? And the brains are coming from the ascendant, but Venus is the one which is actually pulling the two together. And we will get to know a lot about people's tastes in the relationship based on this. Now, if Venus is in a masculine sign, you prefer to be the one pursuing, the hunter. Okay? If Venus is in a feminine sign, you prefer to be the hunted. Simple, straight shot. But this is not enough. This is not enough to decide anything. Okay?
Okay.
So when you ask who should be the hunter and who should be the hunted, it's easy for me. Hey, who's doing all the hunting? It's Venus doing all the hunting. Venus is like, who am I going to make babies with?
Right.
Venus's full focus is just that. How do I churn out a new litter of cubs for this world? All right. Venus's complete focus is that. We think that it's just a desire or a wish. Actually, it is this hormone that is stimulated in us, caused by the rishis, we say, who are sitting on top of our head doing a whole yagya, we call it. They're doing what is called the soma yagya. They do that, and as a result of that, we are running. We are running towards a partner or waiting for a partner as a result. So when you ask who should pursue, who should not, it's easy. Venus tells us that. Venus in a masculine sign, you are the hunter. You prefer to hunt. Partner has Venus in a feminine sign, they prefer to be hunted. Okay? Relationships can be much more complicated than that, but still, let me tell you about Venus. And then I'll tell you about the complications. All right? So what's happening is it's not just that there's a hunter and hunted. That would be easy. And then you will sometimes say these two are both both of them want to be hunted, so nobody's getting anywhere. Or both want to be hunters, so they're clashing. All right? You can get situations like that. And that just means that the two of them have to sort out the dynamics. Okay, they have to make agreements. It's not natural for them. But there's something much deeper we have to dwell on. I talked about guna earlier. Venus's guna is much more important than the other gunas. Because when it comes to a relationship, it's going to tell you a lot about how much this couple has in common when it comes to sexuality as well. It's really, really relevant in that. There are three types of main gunas. main gunas. And these are, we have sattva, as you may know. The sattva is ruled by the signs of Jupiter and sun and moon. Okay? Now imagine that Venus is in a sattvic sign. All right? I joke with a person, oh, you have a thing for the librarians. That's what's going on, actually. That's actually what's going on. Okay? All right? So if it's a lady, what am I trying to say here? She prefers a man who looks, very chiseled and polished, a shirt preferably, maybe he has to dress up a bit like real estate agents do sometimes, right? They, shirt and pants, proper shoes, proper classic. Some agents don't look like that. I get it. Maybe you're a sucker for a person who wears glasses. Okay, carries books. Looks like they're going to lecture at a hall or something. They'll have those blazers with patches on their elbows, things like that. We can make a whole description based on that. What is it that you like because of Venus being placed in a sattvic sign? All right. And similarly for men, if they prefer women, of course, then I'll be looking at, oh, you're a sucker for people who are, again, glasses, again, something which has to look a bit formal. All right. Looks like the lady is going to an office. Is going to be in an office setting. Again, it could be, very formal attire, blazers and whatnot. It could easily be like that. It also implies you are attracted to a partner with knowledge. That's what it implies. You're a sucker for somebody who will just start speaking knowledge to you. That's what where the attraction will be if Venus is in a sattvic sign. Okay. And so I don't normally tell people where my Venus is because of this. Because if they know this, all right, then I'm in trouble because it can get very embarrassing because then they will know exactly what I'm attracted to. You see? Okay.
That's really interesting that you were saying that, Venus is an attraction. When you were saying all that stuff, I was like, yeah, that's me. But I have no shame of it. So
no, that's a good thing, but
right?
Let nobody use it against you.
Yeah.
Right to say? And so because really when it comes to Venus, we don't think anymore. The thinking process stops. It's all taste and desire. All right. And that's why this can be a little bit, tricky to work around. Now, fortunately, we don't have to worry about this being misused terribly, but it can be a little bit embarrassing if figure out somebody's weaknesses this way. So this is what Venus in a sattvic sign does. Now, if Venus is in a rajasic sign, all right? Now, that means you prefer the person is showing a little bit more skin. Okay? It can mean that there's a big focus no longer on the intellectual, but there's a bigger focus on things like food. All right? There's a bigger focus on things like whether the person seems responsible career-wise. All right? Now, that career aspect could be if Venus is more in a sign of Gemini or Virgo, because those are Mercury signs, and Mercury is among the Rajasic planets. And that means if Venus is in those signs, there's a big focus on, hey, buddy, do you pay the bills properly? Do you have a good job? All right. Whereas if Venus is in Venus's signs, suddenly the big focus becomes on, do you have a good family? Do you know how to cook? Do you have a good taste for food? Which restaurants do you like to go to? Impress me by taking me to a nice restaurant. All right. Little bit of skin has to be shown at this stage. Skin is not the focus, but it is a little bit of a requirement to show that you are physically fit. All right. You should not look unwell for Rajas signs. Rajas means you should be able to run a marathon with me. That type of attitude. Even if you yourself cannot run a marathon, you want the other person to do it. All right. So that's what happens when Venus is in Rajasic signs. You notice that Rajasic signs are sounds like a very traditional approach to relationships. Either he comes from a good family or he has a good job, and vice versa. He wants to know, are you going to be working? Because if I'm going to work, I also want you to work. Oh, wait a minute. All right. Suddenly the tables are turned. The man is also demanding that of the of the partner, of the bride in this case. Or that she comes from a nice background family-wise. He might get insecure again. What if she doesn't come from a very nice family? Maybe my family won't accept that. But will she accept my family? So that's Venus in signs of Taurus and Libra. It's surprising it's all about food and family with Venus in own sign, right? That's because Venus has this very special relationship with the water element and the moon.
Yeah, and as well as checklists too, it sounds like.
Yes,
The
that's
shopping
right.
list.
That's right, exactly. And they can have it the hardest if Venus in such a case, is afflicted.
Yeah.
All right. And now, then the last one, Venus in Tamasic signs. So the Tamasic planets are Saturn and Mars. Their signs are Capricorn, Aquarius, Aries, and Scorpio. So when Venus goes here, it's the person is a sucker for the person showing off their abs or their muscles or skin. It's about appearances. We are at the lowest level of identification here. All right, is a very strong physical attraction between them. This could even be the defining element for the relationship moving forward, that the person needs a strong physical attraction in the beginning. And this is a big worry, because if this doesn't somehow smoothen over after a year, it's always that 1 year, and the moons are not matching after that 1 year, we're in trouble. The relationship could break. Okay, so Venus does that. Now, then you'll say, Visti, are there exceptions? And I'll say, yes, if Venus has joined certain planets, those planets will influence that desire, that wish. Okay, now let's say somebody has Venus in Saturn or Mars signs, and they say, Visti, I don't identify with that. I'm not so interested in, how a person looks from that perspective. Then I'll say, no, then it's how they dress. All right. It's that, again, that polished look. All right. It's that polished look again that we had with the Sattvic signs that we talked about earlier. Only it's less to do what the person has between their ears and more to do with how they present it. So if Venus is in a Tamasic sign, Saturn and Mars signs, there is a bigger risk of that the person could be misled in the relationship, especially in Aquarius. Okay.
Yeah, I want to hear this thing that we all heard about curses.
And we say that in deciding the remedies for relationships, we base them solely on how Venus is affected by other planets, and we even base the remedies on that. For example, if Venus is associated with the nodes, then we like the person to worship a form called Kamalatmika. We would like the person to worship the Shri Yantra. We need yantras, especially with Rahu. Okay. If it's associated with Mars, then we ask the person to worship Lakshmi Narasimha, Lakshmi with Narasimha, to overcome the problem. In certain cases, we can even advise Chandi worship. All right. Now, if Venus is associated with Saturn, then we will ask the person to worship Aparajita to overcome the problem. So like that, we can base the certain mantras specifically on Venus's placement. But the base idea is that means we're seeing suffering. And based on that, we give the remedy for the suffering. But coming back, taking it back a notch, we are basing it all on what guna is Venus under. Truth be told, everything a person will experience in a relationship will be based on Venus. How much, what, because every planet has to do with you. Think of the 9 grahas and the ascendant as the 10 heads of a human being. All right. We said there's a story about in the Ramayana that Ravana had 10 heads. What that means is he had all his planets and his ascendant in full strength in his chart. And we humans are like that. We have 10 heads moving in different directions. And one head is the relationship head, and that head is called Venus. So whatever has to do with Venus in the chart is actually not affecting the partner. It's affecting us in the topic of relationships. It's like our head only for relationships. We can treat Venus as the ascendant and read the whole chart to see what's happening in relationships. But this is why I started with, this is what's causing people to come together. Venus. It's that passion, desire, a wish, a taste in the that one gets with the partner. It's an emotion and a hormones. It expresses itself hormonally in the person in the beginning. And it's an infatuation also, which can unfortunately go wrong in the beginning because of that same Venus. But with time, that relationship goes from being Venus to being the moon. Okay?
This is
So when
so
we talk
good.
pursuant, it's all about Venus, excuse me.
Yes, this is so good. It's so insightful what you were saying about Venus is part of the entry of the door. And for the relationship to kind of last, you have to go through the 4 seasons. And I want to promote some of your work if that's okay with you.
Please.
I have taken classes with you, and I recommend anybody who's kind of either want to get a consultation with him, totally would recommend it just because I believe this is what he said in the conference. He said, we come out from a woman, and if you're having money problem, health problem, support women. That
Yeah.
is the best remedy that he ever said. And nobody ever talks about that. He also talks about a lot of times in all his courses, majority is how do we prevent this from going bad or going sour? And I really like that. He talks about it in charts, he shows it. And that's what I really like about his work. It's different from other astrologer. Other astrologer will do prediction, you do yogas, and this is your life. That's it. Right? Here's your dasha, here's your booty, that's it. Here's your remedy out the door, right? But he focused on like, how do we prevent this from going bad? Like your health problem is going bad. Why? Why?
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that about your work. So I'm really impressed some of the stuff that you're doing, especially your course. Can you tell me a little bit more of the stuff that you're working on right now? New stuff or even current stuff that would actually help a lot of my viewers here, especially if they're single women and they're like, hey, I need support. I'm also an astrologer. Maybe I shouldn't be reading my chart. What should I do?
So I have a course website called Rama Academy. And my focus of that website has been for these many years to take people from a basic or even an intermediate position to take them quickly and with a logical view towards being real working astrologers. Now, I don't vouch for that I'm making astrologers per se, but at least that people can be able to understand what's going on in a chart and read it and see the dynamics of a chart. Like you pointed out, that, how do we prevent a difficult situation? That's a big part of being an astrologer so that you can see, oh, this is going to happen in a few years' time. So why? How do we deal with this? What does it mean practically? What's going on practically that's leading into the situation? All right. Is it that we simply have to make the person change something in their decisions? Is it a habit that we have to give them, a change of food or take out of some type of food to avoid a certain problem? And I try to do that through my courses. Specifically, I have 4 major courses that I have been teaching so far in Rama Academy. And they are at the basic level on the 12 signs, but it's not just 12 signs. People say, oh, you're teaching 12 signs. It's not only that. All right. When I teach the sign, I teach the house. And when I teach the house, I teach the planets. When I teach the planets, I teach principles. And then I have an Aditya course, which is advanced. We're entering into the deities, the gods behind the chart. Okay. That there's actually a God in the chart. Where do you see that God? How does that God manifest? The God is actually not down here. The God is up where there somewhere. All right. And manifesting here on earth in a different form for everybody. Then I have something we call the rare Jyotish tools, which is a great step if you've gone through those 2 courses to really get a broad view of other principles that are in different classics and how we in the tradition approach this. Is again always, here's what we do in the tradition. All right. And finally, my sort of thesis was I did 24 lessons on health and illness, on different types of health and illness, which is a special interest of mine, especially. Something I spend a lot of time on trying to figure out the ups and downs of for myself and family and for my clients as well. So for people who want to get a really thorough view, that's what I've got. But right now, when you asked, what am I doing now? I've dwelled on nakshatras more specifically. And I do so in my newsletter. So those who go to my website, srigaruda.com, sign up for the newsletter. Once a week, I'll present you something on nakshatras maybe you didn't know. And I recently presented some lessons on this on my website. And I'm hoping to take that. I had on the courses, I had gone into something very particular, and I'm trying to take that down a notch into some absolute basics of nakshatras that that not everybody knows. So that's what I think I would be able to benefit people with.
I think that's so wonderful, especially a lot of people are, I don't know, very popular on my channel is yonis. And you were mentioning that course. And I think a lot of people will benefit a course like that, especially. But what I really inspire a lot about your course is not only you look at health, but you also look at sleep. And
Yeah.
not a lot of talk about sleep. And that's like the 6, 8, 11th and the 12th house,
Yeah.
how it affects you. You're transitioning, right? So from sleeping to waking up, so rising and set. Not a lot of people talk about that. If you want to have good yoni, you got to have good sleep too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
I really want you to talk about a little bit of yonis. And I know our Western culture are all obsessed with the sex life. And they're like, this is the most important. It's a deal breaker. If we're not having enough of dopamine and serotonins and, oxytocin, if we don't have any of that in the relationship, it's a done deal. We're not a match.
So to do this from the Vedic perspective, we have now 2 options, 3 actually, if you ask me, but I'll explain. We have what people would say when the first thing they hear about yonis is, oh, we are getting into something called yoni matching. Okay? But there's a problem in that. It's based on the moon. So wait a minute, why are we getting into yoni matching suddenly? That means we're only doing it for making babies. Okay? But that's not what people are asking about when they ask about how their sex life is. So yoni matching, I wouldn't use the traditional yoni matching using they're basically animals, animal signs, and they're in groups, and some of them match with each other and some don't. And so if you told me, Visti, I've tried to get into yoni nakshatra and things like that, and I'll say, yeah, that's fun and all, that's great, but it really only is helping people in with that information about the actual animal associated with our yoni. That helps people think about having a family together. For example, if I know for some reason or the other, the person has this odd attraction whenever they see elephants, that's probably because their moon is in a yoni nakshatra of the elephant. So if I put a picture of the elephant on the wall in the bedroom of that person, they're going to think about that. They're going to be thinking about sex whenever they see that image. And so we use that as a remedy to remind the brain subconsciously to think about sex. But that doesn't lead to a healthy sex life. I can put pictures all over all the animals. It'll be a whole safari inside that person's bedroom, and it may not help the sex life. It'll just make the person think about it. Okay? So we astrologers, we look at something additional. We have something called linga matching. Okay? Now, you asked me about yoni, and we talked about yoni, and now I'm saying I'm going to talk about linga instead. So then you're going to think, Visti, I wanted yoni. What's this linga thing about? That's the opposite. That's the man's, not the woman's. What do we do here? And I say, hold on. You see, there is something called strilinga and punlinga. Okay? Strilinga refers to female linga, and punlinga refers to a male linga. So what's yoni then? Yoni is the womb itself. So really, what is the yoni for? It is more to do with creation than the actual sexual interaction. It's more to do with that. Okay? We all have come from a yoni. We are created from a yoni. But it's the linga which is deciding how much sexual interaction there is. And when I say linga, I don't mean the man's linga. I mean also the woman's linga. There is an aspect of a woman which is also a linga. Okay? And we're not dealing with physiology here. It has more to do with the drive to enter into a sexual relationship. Everybody's linga, whether strilinga or punlinga, is seen in their 7th house, and specifically their 7th lord. So now we're getting into ascendants, right? Because we have left Venus behind, we've left Moon behind. It doesn't mean we won't come back to the Moon. There's some relevance. We will borrow some principles from there. But it's really the 7th house which is deciding most of this. And we're getting into chart analysis now. Okay, we're getting into the deep end. So when you want to see if two people match with each other, you can approach it from two perspectives, just reading the 7th house. One is very important, which is the 7th lord, supremely important. Absolute supreme importance is the 7th lord. But if you don't catch the 7th house itself, you're going to miss something. Okay? So if people have planets in their 7th house or even aspecting the 7th house, you want that to be the same in both the partners' charts. Let's say I have Saturn joined my 7th lord. I have nothing in 7th house. Maybe it's joined 7th lord. Then I want my partner to have Saturn in the 7th house or join her 7th lord. Otherwise, we will not think alike in relationships. We just won't. And we will not have a positive sex life if we don't have that. Okay? We will not be on the same page with each other in our sexual interactions. We will not deem our sexual relationship healthy at all, no matter how many animals are on the wall. Okay? We won't gel together. So when people ask how to have a healthy sex life with each other, all right, you need to have the same view of sexuality. And I mentioned Saturn to put it in such a, morbid, difficult position. We don't like Saturn when it comes to sexuality because Saturn is like an old man. All right? Okay? So if you have Saturn linked to your 7th house, you are the only person who will understand your view of sexuality will be another person with Saturn linked to your 7th house. Okay? Because you think like an old woman or man, and so that person has to think the same. Otherwise, you don't gel well with each other. Actually, that means that the couple will think like old men or women are like nuns as well. So they think actually like nuns, by the way, nuns and monks. Yeah, and their interaction will be very spiritual and serene and very clean and very pure. Actually, it's very, very nice.
Very scheduled.
Not necessarily. That's Rahu. He's scheduled. He's rigid.
Oh, he's a schedule.
He's the most rigid among them. Okay, very, very rigid. And so you want the same planets linked to both your 7th houses. Okay, so this is another form of synastry you may infer. All right, this is useful. Okay, this is very useful, but there is another side to this as well. Okay, you see. One thing is as an astrologer, I look at two charts and see, they have similar planets linked to their 7th house. That's brilliant. They both think alike in relationships. One has Mercury, the other has Mercury. They're both playful. They're all wanting to play with toys and joke and make jokes with each other and talk to each other during and things like that. That's all about that. All right. The whole foreplay is just making jokes with each other. Once one of them starts laughing, that means they're aroused. Okay. For them. If it's Venus, it's about taste. What taste they have in the mouth. They have to have a certain taste. Are you bringing a certain wine or a certain juice? Is that person just obsessed with coffee and you need to give them coffee before they get interested? A cigarette, whatever it is. It's a taste issue with Venus. Okay? But if you both think this alike in that respect, it's going to be easy. The problem is when you have, and we are open here. What if one has Venus, the other has Mars? That's not going to work. All right. One is a bull, Mars, all right, or tiger, if you will, okay, to be specific. And the other one is a cow, Venus, all right. So tiger and cow, there's going to be an issue over there, all right. Maybe some people say Venus is a rabbit. I won't declare anything about that. There are ways to read that. But the point is, there's a mismatch. But what if one has Venus, the other has Mars, but the one having Venus in seventh or lording the seventh has an aspect of Mars?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they'll figure it out. All right, they'll figure it out. Now, and when people, so this is when you could ask, Visti, you said aspects. Did you mean planetary graha drishti or is it rashi drishti? We have two types, technically, right? Mm-hmm. And so if I want the relationship to be lifelong and lasting and not just sometimes being on the same page, I want rashi drishti, sign aspect, the Jaimini aspects people call nowadays. All right? What if one is having Mars and the other one has Mars graha drishti, planetary aspect? That means only if that person with the planetary aspect is in the dasha of Mars, only then will they be on the same wavelength. That could really be cheating, isn't it? Oh, we met during your Mars dasha and now Mars is over and you're not interested anymore. That's exactly what happens. All right. So the seventh house becomes relevant here. But I expressed there is also a dilemma behind this.
Okay.
And this is where we get into the mature aspect of astrology a little bit. All right. Where we say, okay, now listen up, guys. Planets linked to the seventh house will tell us for how long are you going to be immature about relationships. And the older the planet, the older you have to be before that maturity starts. Specifically, we're interested in planets join the seventh house itself, not the Lord. So if you have a sun over there in the seventh house, congratulations. From 22 years of age, you are mature enough to start thinking about relationships properly. Moon 24, Venus 26, Mars 28, Mercury 30, Jupiter 32, Saturn 36. Hello, there's a problem here. Ketu is 40, goodness. Rahu is 44. You are not mature and ready for a relationship until age 44. What were you doing all that time? Because a real relationship is not because of the seventh house. It's because of the 12th house. So you can see, I'll get into the 12th house. So you can see an implication here, right? So as an astrology, if I read a chart and I say, oh, this person has Rahu in the seventh house. What are we going to do? This person is just chasing, whatever is between other people's legs until 44 years of age. Until 44, they actually have not matured enough in relationships to think seriously about settling down. So they're going to have a few situations. Okay. And we do know if Rahu or Ketu are in the seventh house, there's a strong risk of two marriages. There's a strong risk. Not necessarily, depends on the 12th house, but there's a very strong risk. And so we want to quickly finish the seventh house obsession so that the person will think of their partner as a companion, not a mate. See the difference?
Yes. Yes.
Otherwise, they can keep going from mate to mate, you see? That's the problem with the seventh house.
Right. And it's any kind of mate.
Any kind of mate.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't discriminate. Color, whatever.
Now, that we will say that that the reason we've been dwelling on the seventh house is because the seventh house tells us about the person's tastes also. Like when I think of relationships, what do I think about? The image that is in my mind is in my seventh house. All right. So if I have Rahu over there, then I'm thinking, oh, I would really like a partner who's very cultured, diplomatic, is very broad-minded, maybe has some foreign influence or some foreign view or foreign understanding, should not be rigid and restricted to only one view. Okay? Should be somebody who's breaking my boundaries. If Ketu, you might like, no, the person should preferably only be from my town. It can happen like that, or a certain, group or culture that's associated with them. There's that restriction that comes with Ketu, Oh, if they're not from my village, then why would I? type of situation with Ketu. It's very opposite Rahu in that way, and doesn't like traveling, Ketu, if in 7th house. But this is how you're formulating some of your views about relationships when these planets are in the 7th house. Mars, you want somebody, Mars, you don't mind marrying somebody who's poorer than you in 7th. Yeah. Okay. You don't mind. In fact, preferably they should not be from your social class. That attracts you more for some reason. You may not know it. The person may not say it, and they may not understand that's the case, but they just get attracted to that. Okay. They will also have this view that Mars is peculiar because you also think that, oh, when I wed, I will be independent. What? What's that about? All right. They have this warrior mentality that their partner is sort of the next partner in that port. They have that funny view, Mars, because there's this sense of independence with Mars. You're the warrior, you're alone, you have to be independent. So you're looking for a partner who will allow you to be independent. That's messed up, actually. It really is. It's not the correct way of thinking. That's why we don't like Mars in the 7th house. Mercury in the 7th, indiscriminate. That's a problem. Okay. It tends to fall in love with friends. All right. Yes, that's not always easy to deal with, to go through. And Jupiter in the 7th is the best, but it can make you very idealistic. And that can work in certain cultures, but it's good for such a person to marry somebody who comes from a very ordered and strong and some people will say rigid family background. All right. Like they will prefer a partner. Oh, I would like somebody who is a member of a church. All right. Or has very good values. Values is very, very important. Very strong family values. So that's great if you come from a religious community. Then you can find somebody also that is maybe in that community. But if you're not familiar with those communities, it puts you in a bit of a funny place with Jupiter in 7th. Saturn is actually very nice. Okay, except there's that old age mentality. Saturn in 7th is do or die. Either I will get this partner or I will never marry. Okay, that's Saturn for you. And if you have kids with Saturn in the 7th house, you're in for some fun. Not for you. Not your fun. They're in for the fun. You're going to have a funny situation because you will have your child will be saying, either I marry this person or you will never see me again. You can get kids who do that because Saturn is do or die in relationships, all or nothing, especially in 12th house. We'll get to that. Venus is really nice in relationships, provided the nodes are not linked to the 12th house. Then it can give many relationships, unfortunately. Moon, it's good, but the person is obsessed with relationships. That's not healthy, all right? The sun is a question mark again. You can hear there are not many great planets in the 7th house. Sun, question mark. Moon, question mark. Mars, question mark. All right? Nodes, question mark. There's really just Venus and Jupiter. We didn't like Mercury. We didn't like Mars. You hear that? Saturn, I said, you can deal with Saturn. It's not bad. Saturn is good. Okay? So the rest really have this peculiar situation with the 7th house. The sun will ensure a good and healthy marriage. Moon will also do so, but getting there is the problem for the sun and moon. Venus, Jupiter, really, really nice. Okay, so that's the 7th house. So there's two aspects of the 7th house you can hear from me. That you have to have them matching each other to have a good sexual relationship. All right, and if they don't match, trouble. And secondly, it also tells you a lot about the person's maturity in relationships. What are they expecting? It's not what they get, it's what they're looking for.
Interesting. No, it's really good that you were mentioning the two important things when we do matching is about Venus. But we notice now there's a pattern that any planet in the 7th house is question mark in general, except for Saturn, which a lot of people say Saturn.
We do like Venus and Jupiter there. They are healthy. Sun and Moon is healthy eventually. All right. So I don't want to put them all away Saturn is really, really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were mentioning, let's talk about the 12th house.
Yes. So really what's happening is that our view of having a companion comes from the 12th house. Okay. But that has an implication. The person is not necessarily a sexual partner. So that's where people start wondering, should we study this? But the thing is, the 12th house is telling who it is that you will think of as somebody you will spend the rest of your life with. And this need not be a sexual relationship. And this is the dilemma about this 12th house. Okay? Who is going to follow you through life? You will eat together, you will speak together, you will sleep in the same room, but it doesn't have to be a passionate sexual relationship. Okay? And people will say that, yes, there were in the initial years where the relationship was most intense sexually. It's true. And after some time, that starts becoming less of a priority in the relationship. Okay. And that's because the relationship is transforming to leave the 7th house to become the 12th house. And it has to, because people's libido is not the same throughout life. Okay. Their physical ability is not the same throughout life. Maybe if you hear 80-year-olds a sex life and you hear, wow, that sounds very healthy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're having, a great relationship with each other necessarily. Hopefully they have, but that is based on that 12th house. How well do you want, or how well is the actual relationship between the partners? It's all about 12th house. And sometimes this goes a bit weird. And this is the thing, like I said, it need not be sexual. If one partner has Mars in 12th and the other has Mars in 12th, this is a marriage of convenience, actually. They may not even live together. They may not ever have been in a sexual relationship with each other, but they love each other. Very odd. All right. It's again those priests living together, right?
Yeah, the nun and the priest. Yeah.
The nun and the priest. This is literally what happens with Mars is in the 7th. Now, I mentioned Saturn behaving like a priest, and when it comes to sexuality in the 7th, but Saturn is having sex. Mars is not. That's the thing.
That is true. Mars is a celibate planet.
Exactly. And that's what happens when two people mutually have Mars in the 12th house. All right. When we talk about the 12th house, so if you recall, I mentioned that what's happening is Venus is instigated to look for a relationship because the rishis are performing this great spiritual ritual on top of your head called the Soma Yagya. All right. And that causes the hormones to go all over the place. The rishis are like, oh, it's time. We need these people to make some babies with each other so more people can be born on this planet and more rishis from our line can be born. That's what they're doing. They're getting excited. Oh, these two, look at them. They're tingling. Let's make them make some babies. How they do it is through the 12th house. Your personal saint, the sages, the ones who are driving you in any direction in your life, are in the 12th house. This is a very spiritual concept. Very spiritual concept. If you can catch hold of that sage, which is driving you in this direction, you will have all the knowledge you want available of every subject you want. Your relationship life will be brilliant. You will have enough wealth, property, vehicles, everything they'll give you. Everything. And you will have peace of mind. My God. If that is not enough, you will be at peace. You will have shanti. That's what they're doing in the 12th house. And they are doing so with the idea that this whole world should be this beautiful, lovely place. Okay? Everybody should be at peace. Everybody should be happy and prosperous and wealthy, and everything should be fine. They're just focused on that. It's such a beautiful concept, this 12th house. It's the natural sign of Pisces, which comes from there. And why we're interested in this from the perspective of relationships is that's the exaltation sign of Venus. From this, we derive 3 important signs, or therefore houses. The 12th house, which is the exaltation sign of Venus, the 7th house, which is the Motrikona of Venus, and the 2nd house, which is the own sign, Swakshetra, or home sign of Venus. And every relationship has to go through these 3 stages. Exaltation first. Are you marriage material? Or are you just mating material, 7th house? Will you be part of my family? 2nd house, Gotra. Okay, 3 stages. And we can match every 3 stages. All right. Is it sexual only? We just have to see the 7th house. That's it. But the 12th house, do I want to live with you for the rest of my life? The 2nd house, okay, I introduced you to my family. Do you accept my family? All right. Now, for the 7th and the 2nd, the work we do is similar. We just see if they're the same planets. Okay. Like if you have Jupiter in the 2nd house, or lording or aspecting the 2nd house, you will accept somebody else who has Jupiter also linked to the 2nd house. You will consider them as family. This can be friends, this can be partner, remarriage to relationship, you can have kids with them. Great. So when people are married and there's a family problem, we see the 2nd house to see which planets indicates that person's family, which planet indicates that person's family. Do they match? Is there some similarity? Can they get along? If there's a problem getting along, we also know which planet it is, which is having a problem to get along. Cool, huh? But the 12th house is the companion. We're not interested in the same planets. Like I said, both of them having Mars, they're both going to be in that odd relationship with each other. That's not ideal, all right? It is there. It can work for some people, but it's not ideal. So here we say the best planets, this can be a bit of a surprise, the best planets to have in the 12th house and who actually want to encourage marriage are the Sun, Moon, Venus, and Rahu. They actually want to encourage marriage. Okay? Venus and Rahu, we can be a bit skeptical about, but the Sun and Moon over there are really, really nice planets. And then somebody will say, but is the Sun well placed in the 12th house? I say, only for marriage. Oh, not for everything else, only for marriage. Okay? Disclaimer, right? So somebody will listen to this later on and say, Visti, are you sure about what you said? I am. All right? I'm quoting actually Parashara. I am. So the Sun, Moon, Venus, and Rahu, brilliant to have over there. They really want to encourage marriage. It's all the other planets who are causing a bit of a hiccup. All the others. Prime among which is 3 of them. Ketu, Saturn, and Mars are causing a problem in the 12th house in marriage. And the rest are in between. Okay? So that means Jupiter and Mercury, they will encourage, but they have demands. All right? They'll have demands. See, you might have a certain taste in a relationship based on your 7th house. But if you have Jupiter or Mercury in your 12th house, they're saying, if he or she doesn't have a proper education, it doesn't matter. So what happened? You thought you were deciding, but no, you're not. These planets are saying, we have this demand. It must be there. Demand. It must be there. Okay? And then we said the good planets are Venus and Rahu and Sun and Moon. But this Venus and Rahu are tricky planets over there. Because if you have Venus in the 12th house, every day you're falling in love. Not necessarily with the same person. Problem.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So Scorpio ascendants and Gemini ascendants have a big problem here. Because their 12th house is lorded by Venus. Every day they are battling with the idea that, oh, that person is very nice. And how would it be if I was married with them? I wonder how it would be if I was living with that person for 5 years. How would our life be? Half the day is spent thinking like that. And you say, what a waste of time. All right?
Their infatuation. They're falling in love with the infatuation. It's not real.
Yes. But you see what we're talking about here. The 12th house is guiding the person's idea of whom they can wed, not who they can mate. So when we talk about relationships, we can't ignore it. All right? And there are differences between Gemini and Scorpio. All right? Gemini is the player of the zodiac. Definitely. Without a doubt.
He's a Peter Pan.
Exactly. Definitely, without doubt. And if you have Gemini ascendant, you've got to be careful. All right? I say you should be careful. You won't be careful. That's the problem.
Well, they could be stuck in a triangle love. That's what it is.
Yes. Yes. You say triangle, it could be many more angles. Okay?
I agree.
Typically. I mean, I am so impressed with Gemini ascendants. They can flirt for ice cream. All right? There's nothing that stops at that. And I can't blame them. What a beautiful thing that is in them that has that emotion, that strength. All right? But we also know with age that can be quite unhealthy.
Right.
All right? Imagine a 60-year-old doing that, flirting with 13-year-olds for ice cream, right? That sounds crazy in an ice cream shop. My God, what's happening here? But this is what's going on. Scorpio is the other end of things. If you have Scorpio ascendant, that 12th house better be clean. Because otherwise, if you have, I don't look at what's on the ascendant or 7th house here. If you have any of those malefics in the 12th house with Scorpio ascendant, that means you don't mind getting into something which is somewhat S&M type, masochistic when it comes to your interactions with a partner. You prefer a bit of aggression, a bit of force. If you don't have something clean, some nice Jupiter, some nice Mercury, very clean planets when they're together, not alone, unfortunately, with Mercury, but very clean. If it's there, don't worry. This person is not a Scorpio ascendant even. They don't even act like it. But if there's like a nice, just one malefic, one Mars, one Saturn, one Rahu, one Ketu, something is wrong. Okay? Even Rahu, there will be something wrong.
Well, they're into taboo, right? That's what it is. Exploring the taboo of unconsciousness.
Yes, that would be very fair, especially for Ketu. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is what's going on in the chart when we see the 12th house. Now, so when people want to use this information, how can they use this? You just have to check, is that partner having malefics in their 12th house? Especially Saturn, Mars, Ketu. If one of those are there, you be careful in that relationship. Their concept of what happens in the bedroom may not be the same as yours. Okay? And if the person is having very nice planets over there, Moon, Venus, Jupiter, Mercury works too, it usually is a very healthy relationship. With Venus, be careful though. If Venus is in the 12th and their nodes are in the 7th, the person could break your heart. Venus can fall in love all the time. Be careful. All right? Is there some planet stabilizing that Venus? This is the only time where I like Ketu associated with the 12th house. If Ketu Venus are joined in the 12th, okay, they can figure it out. All right? They'll figure it out. They won't run into an obstacle. Venus Jupiter, it's very nice. Venus Mercury, it'll encourage Venus too much. All right? But at least it's not a difficult relationship. Now, this is where we get into, are you meeting the wrong guy or girl? Is this a bad boy or bad girl? Are they going to give you sorrow and trouble and punish you in the relationship? That's when malefics are in the 12th house. That's what we're dealing with here. How to choose. All right? Of course, you'd be so lucky if you knew the partner's chart before you got into the relationship. That would be very nice. Okay? Right. And so therefore, as an astrologer, give a tip. The 12th house is the nose. Look at the person's nose. If there's something wrong in the shape of the nose, there's a problem in the 12th house. All right. Now, all the ladies are going to be like, what's on it? Is let me see his nose. Is there holes? Is it broken? All right. Okay. So all that you can start examining, and then you'll notice that if there's something off, then you might want to ask for the chart to see what's in the 12th house. Okay. Then there are other topics that we can dwell on here. So this is us talking about the 12th house. Yeah. Do you want to ask something about the 12th house?
Well, I do have a curiosity because I was going through matching relationship, and I noticed Rahu and Ketu play a big role of who they select. And they normally select somebody with planets with Ketu more so, on both sides.
You mean that they have opposites with nodes, or you mean, or how
no,
did you mean?
Or like if you overlay the chart or superimpose, right?
Yes.
So, and it lands on to their either like a K2 with another planet, the partner's planet. And so a lot of people in dating as well, I have noticed as well, K2 becomes like the theme of the relationship, but it doesn't last because
yes. The reason is because of chakras of the body.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So here we say that I have to make sure I do this properly. And yes. Okay. So there is a concept of where we put the 9 planets in 9 chakras.
Mm-hmm.
You say, Visti, there's 7. No, we use 9 here. We add 2. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And in that concept, we say Ketu is the lowest chakra, which is Muladhara.
Mm-hmm.
And Rahu is the Swadhisthana.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And these 2 chakras often have a lot to do with whom we are choosing in relationships. If Ketu is the choice, then it's because you're looking for stability.
Mm-hmm.
If Rahu is the choice, then it's because of pure attraction. So you can have similar planets linked to these nodes when it comes to choices in relationships. But this becomes a bigger focus only if one of these nodes is in the 7th from the moon. Then the person gets obsessed with this. Because the chakra that your mind is occupied with is in the 7th from the moon. Now, that's because what the mind wants is in the 7th from the moon. All right. So the person's obsessed with that. And then the choices can be based on that in other people's charts. So that's how we use that. But like you said, this is not going to last because we didn't enter the 7th house domain. We didn't enter the 12th house domain. All right. We're not there where we're supposed to be, which has an implication. The person's not figuring this thing out. Okay. They're stuck somewhere. So we have a statement here. The dasha, when the person is getting ready to find the partner they will marry, will be linked to the 12th house in Rashi chart.
Oh, that's so interesting because we always hear that the 12th is the house of undoing. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, of course. The house of loss, of undoing, also mistakes are there. That's right.
Transitioning out.
Yeah,
rebirthing.
Absolutely. Yes. But when it comes to marriage, check. The person is getting engaged usually in a dasha linked to that, or they're looking for to get engaged in a dasha linked to that 12th house in the Rashi chart. And this is regular Vimshotri. Disclaimer, not everybody has Vimshotri working for them, but for the most of the population, this will be the case. All right? Yes.
So you're saying the activation is based on the 12th house.
Yes.
As well.
Because that's when you're looking for the companion. Right? That's when the Rishi woke up in the 12th, said, oh, let's start that ritual. Let's start get going, Let's bring all those things to life. And if you're not in that dasha and you're looking for a partner, you're not going to find somebody you want to be with for the rest of your life. You're not going to find that companion to be with. So then I tell people, maybe don't waste your time. Yeah. I have many clients, I tell them, okay, let's see your chart, look at the dashas. Then I open the annual chart. And then I want to be sure I open annual charts. So I confirm, is it happening this year or not? Dasha may say many times, but I draw a whole chart just for the year to be sure. Is it this year? No. Is it that year? Yes. No. Is somebody coming and you think the person is there, but they're not? Yes or no, based on the annual chart. Annual charts are very useful. And then I can tell the person, please keep your expectations low until that month.
Right.
Before that, forget it. And I tell people that maybe they're dating and nothing is happening. And I say, look, this is what you need to check or be in expectation of. All right.
That is so good. No, it's so true. And I also notice as well when not only checking the year is you also can check the eclipse as well. Yeah. Solar or sun, solar, moon, whatever eclipse, either it brings it, breaks it out, whatever it is. That's the theme, right?
Those eclipses are very useful. I should say they're not always useful because like you may have experienced, it may not always show that there is a problem. All right. It's like a trigger of a problem. But it could be another transit, which is also a similar trigger of a problem or no problem. My teacher would spend a lot of energy on Saturn's and Jupiter's transits, which is the standard way of seeing is something denied or is something allowed. Okay. And he would he even wrote about it that we look at Saturn's transit vis-a-vis the 7th house and 7th lord. If Saturn has anything to do with either of those, then even if you enter a relationship during that period, you might regret it. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's that dilemma. Like Saturn is right now in Capricorn. He's
Mhm.
aspecting by Graha Drishti on Pisces, on Cancer, on
Mhm.
Libra. And so if your seventh lord is in one of those signs, in Capricorn, Pisces, Cancer, and Libra, and you enter a relationship during this time, you might regret it.
Mhm.
Okay? You may not like this relationship.
Mhm.
Jupiter instead is trying to open the door for these. So Jupiter right now is transiting. Is he still in? He's in Aquarius.
No,
He entered,
he's
right?
leaving. He's going there.
And he's going there. So if you enter a relationship and Jupiter's right now, he's going there to Aquarius and he's aspecting Gemini and Leo and Libra. It's very good to have seventh lord there.
Mhm.
Problem is Saturn is aspecting Libra, right?
Mhm.
Dilemma, just
Mhm.
about him. So then Jupiter will open the door for a relationship, and this is quite useful. This is
Right.
very, very smart to get into. So you can easily see, all right, is Jupiter supporting, is Saturn obstructing? The beauty of knowing Saturn's transit is you'll always know if you're making a good decision.
Mm.
When is the right time to make a decision?
Mm.
And this is about starting the activity.
Mm.
It's not, oh, we've already been together for 5 years and now Saturn is causing a problem. No, I don't care about that. You already made the decision earlier. You've already been in a relationship for so long. It doesn't mean now we have to be, dwelling on a problem unless your other aspects of your birth chart also indicate that. All right.
Mm.
So it's about starting. I mean, people use this for property. If Saturn aspects fourth lord, if you buy a house in that transit, well, you're going to regret buying that house. So it's as important. Mhm.
Right. Right. No, this is so good. I want to wrap it up and I want to respect your time as well. And we learned so much wisdom, especially the 12th house factor. It's also the house of sleeping too. So you got to take care of that. So, and having a bunch of safari around your room is not going to help with your porn star lifestyle per se. But what's really important is your moon and your Venus, and then Saturn is going to help take the glue, especially in the seventh house. It's going to help it in a long-term relationship, and whatever hardship that you go through in a relationship, Saturn is going to be there. You're going to tough it out, and it will be a long journey and hopefully healthy journey, and you're going to come out in one piece. Do you have any courses, or are you doing any consultation at the moment that you might be running right now?
So I'm always doing consultations.
Okay.
All right. So that's my bread and butter. I only can complain that I'm booked for 4 months. I'm not the one complaining. It's my clients who do. And so expect that if you reach out. But when it comes to courses, so one thing I didn't speak about here,
Mhm.
which is useful as soon as we enter into the topics of relationships and sexuality, we talk about divisional charts,
Mhm.
and there is one called the Somnath Rekana.
Mhm.
And people, when they talk about relationships, they say, what about Navamsha? Yes,
Mhm.
it is useful. Very, very useful. But we can't really do much with it.
Mhm.
Because if I know this person likes to, is mostly interested in having sex only outdoors
Mhm.
or next to fireplaces or in bedrooms only, or they should be able to see the sky when it happens, or things like that. That's not something we can work with. All
Mhm.
right. It's what is there.
Mhm.
Mhm. It can only be that the astrologer or the person reading the chart can use it to their advantage to make the partner more interested.
Mhm.
That's manipulation. So that's
Mhm.
not really useful.
Mhm.
Or whether the person likes to do it like a bull or a bird, or they like to chase. Or we can read that in the Navamsha. Is that
Mhm.
useful? No.
Mhm.
All right. But in the Somnath Rekana, we can see the dynamics of the sexual activity between the person and the partner. We
Mhm.
can see the dashas which may be inhibiting one or the other because of various reasons, health-wise or otherwise.
Mhm.
And we can give remedies based on it to
Mhm.
ensure that the conjugal life is better. We can give real remedies,
Mhm.
real useful things that can tie the couple together and really enjoy a good relationship, because it could be that one partner is complaining that the other is not interested. The reason is maybe found in the Somnath Rekana more practically, Because if you're already wedded with somebody, you've been together for some time, you figured out your chart, your 7th house is not matching in the Rashi chart. You figured out the 12th house is making sense because you've been together for so long. The 2nd house is fine because family-wise, it's all is good and fine. You figured out that, oh, maybe the moon is telling you something and Venus is telling you something, but really the dynamics of the relationship that you're already in, what's actually happening and which remedies we can work on is in that Somnadrikana. And this I have taught in my Rama courses, specifically in the Rashi courses. All right.
Wow.
So that this can be of value for somebody to analyze and work on how to exactly address this particular problem. All right. Of course, if you're not wanting to go through a course, you can always knock on my door and get a consultation. And then I'll get to the root of it quickly. So this is what I didn't mention. When we talk of relationships, we can go on for a long time about different aspects of which charts I would examine. There is even something called the Samasaptaka Hora. We haven't talked about even. All right. There is the Somnadrikana. I have mentioned Navamsha. Everybody knows this is relevant, but the depth nobody really talks about. Right. So these are also relevant. But if we don't have this foundational topics that we've been talking about today, the others don't matter.
Right. No, it's totally true. I want to thank you so much. You have such great wisdom. And for anybody who is crying over their love life and is ready, want to get a consultation with Visti, I would totally recommend it. And if you have any last words for those who are heartbroken and really are struggling in love life, what would you say to them?
So I will say this. When it comes to love and relationships, the biggest problem that we have is that people need to learn that a relationship eventually has to be about more giving. And you may be giving everything, and your partner is not giving away anyway. All right? That happens. That's usually why you'll be the one crying over the relationship, by the way. But you have to be sure that you are giving without an expectation for a reward to really set the example of how this relationship should be. And this is the beginning of you working towards a good relationship, by you setting a good example. All right? Be careful with setting a demand. Maybe your demands are reasonable. They might be very, very reasonable. Absolutely. No, not taking that away from anybody. But putting yourself not in the seat of somebody who is waiting for the partner to change, but rather working towards making yourself ready for the change and therefore the partner, you are half of the relationship. You are considered ardhangi. You are half of that person. Anything you do will eventually completely affect the partner. All right? And the best thing you can do, the best, if you were to consider going down one step further in giving, do two things. Number one, do your best to eat with your partner once a day. Because food, the moon, is that which binds us together. And if we can bind each other together over food, we will also begin to have peace in our lives. That's the first sign of peace. This peace is really, really relevant. And food is the best way to ensure that a whole family is at peace with each other. They can argue the whole day, but at the dining table, they eat together and they might be at peace with each other, we hope at least. And when this happens, when this peace begins with the moon, the 12th house will start becoming positive, because the peace is influencing two houses in our lives. The 12th house and the first house are fully influenced by the moon. Fully, absolutely. So the stronger this becomes, the more pacified these two become. And then the companion will start listening to you. Okay? They will start responding to you. Work towards that. Maybe it's about the food. Maybe we have to correct the food. Maybe it's about what you're drinking as well. Maybe teas and whatnot, which are more herbal, will help in a person's mood. Maybe there's a lot of aggression that has to be taken out of the relationship. And finally, when you see that it's not changing anything to ensure a better atmosphere around the dining table, then you have to start fasting. Okay? To start clearing up the actual problems that are there in the chart. And the best way you can do this is look to your 12th house. First, carefully look. You have to fast on a weekday. You should never fast on the weekday of a planet lording the second house. Never. Make sure you never do it. So this is just a quick check. Just check. All right? Look to your 12th house. See if there are planets there. Find the most negative, fast on its weekday, provided it's not second lord. Okay? If there are no planets in your 12th house, consider fasting on the lord of the 12th house, excuse me. So Venus is the 12th lord in your chart, fast on a Friday. That is directly going to start affecting the relationship very, very positively and immediately. Okay? We have something called Upapada. This is the best one to fast on, by all means. All right? What I've been sharing is there could be a problem in the 12th house. So you want to fast on the day of that problem so that problem does not enter your life on that day. Because the only way that planets can enter your life is through food. So if you restrict that food from coming into your life, that planet cannot enter your life, and the negatives of that planet cannot enter your life. And so if there's a problem in your 12th house, you have removed the problem just by fasting once a week, excuse me. All right? That is, we fast in the daytime, sunrise to sunset, or if you're in a place like Canada or Denmark, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., all right, to make it proper, that you're removing that planet's ability to have a negative influence on you. Upapada I mentioned. Count from the 12th house to the 12th lord and the same distance therefrom. There is a calculation called Upapada. If you're in doubt, maybe Cindy, you'll clarify if somebody asks, all right, about the calculation. That sign, that Upapada, that resultant house, counting from 12th house to 12th lord and the same distance therefrom, that resultant house, that will be in a sign. That sign has a lord, and you should fast on that weekday. That will directly transform your spouse. Your spouse will have no choice but to be completely amicable towards you and even reveal secrets the spouse was keeping from you. They will have no choice. They cannot help it. Maybe you're in a really tough position. You're thinking your spouse is having an affair. You will get to know probably on the weekday of that Upapada, if you fast on that day. You will get to know. Right. It's that powerful a remedy.
I love it. I love some of your remedy. They're so simple and straightforward, and it's doable.
It's doable and they make sense.
And it makes
Sincerely,
sense.
If you come to me as a client, I will also look at mantras. I won't hold back. All right. I have a nice arsenal over there too.
I love it.
But if need be, of course, whatever is necessary.
Of course.
But you can hear the way to unite partners with each other is through food or fasting. The opposite. Yes. I said sunrise to sunset, never fast at night unless you want the relationship to break.
Yeah.
It's a separate issue.
Yeah. I see that. Yeah. Okay. Well, Visti, thank you so much for being here. I'm pretty sure a lot of people will be like, I want him back. Get him back here. I'm like, okay, well, we'll see what his schedule is like.
Well, reach out. Let me know.
I will.
And it will be my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right. Bye, everybody.
Namaste.